in Sderot with our friends at JNF. Ariel Kotler is here, JNF, Jewish National Fund Development Officer, involved in many projects. A pleasure to welcome you to JM in the AM.
Thank you, Nachum. Great to be here.
You had an observation which we should remind our listeners about. I'm sure we've mentioned this before. And that is, as the rocket was sitting here, you pointed out that every rocket is labeled with where it fell and when it fell, so people will remember where and when it fell here in Sderot or anywhere else.
Right. Unfortunately, too many rockets. And I think the reason they write the date and the location where it fell teaches us a lot about how they're advancing their development of the rockets, how far they're reaching, how precisely they're hitting the targets.
Right.
And that's kind of why they use it. I mentioned the story that I was with friends from Cherry Hill, the Abramsons, and we were at the Gavim Junction. We went to see the police station, and when we got to the police station, we saw the rocket that had fell less than 24 hours earlier fell in the Gavim Junction. So it's unfortunately, it hits too close to home too often.
Pretty unbelievable.
Yeah.
Chances are we're speaking to some JNF supporters because you've noticed that a lot of different communities in the United States are there on the front lines when JNF needs new projects or even old projects funded.
Well, for sure. First of all, JNF of America built this playground. JNF of America raises $80 to $100 million a year. That all comes to Israel. We are your voice in Israel. We make Israel a better place every single day. And this playground is just one example. Just to give some statistics, some ideas of this playground, it's had over 300,000 children through the doors of this playground, and several of my own. And I've been to the playground while the sirens went off with my own kids here. And I could see the fear in my wife's eyes, having to run, and there's always a lot of staff here making sure within seconds everybody's in the bomb shelters. Right. And it's a scary thing. I mean, everybody remembers JNF from the original days of the blue boxes,
sure,
the pushkas. And that's why when we finished building this building, you could see we painted it all blue. We call it the biggest blue box in the world. Just instead of putting quarters inside, our entire goal is putting smiling kids inside, giving kids the opportunity to be children. Just
you even
to play.
Got the right shade, it seems.
Yeah, pretty much. That was the goal. So,
very nice. Ariel Kotler is here, JNF Development Officer. One of the things that we always talk about is how JNF and you encourage others to partner with you. Concentrate on different regions of the country. Blueprint Negev is a project that obviously is there to help expand population in the Negev. We see what's happened in Beersheba. You'd love to replicate that, I'm sure, in many other areas. Give us an update on what's happening in the Negev.
Well, so, the Negev is 60% of the land of Israel. Only 8 to 10% of the Israeli population live on it.
Right.
The 20-80 rule, the rule of 80% of the people living on 20% of the land can work fine in any other place. But in a state smaller than the same size as the state of New Jersey, we can't afford to give up 80% of the land.
Right.
And that's why JNF put at the forefront some very important, missions today. Our vision is to get 500,000 Israelis to move to the Negev and 300,000 Israelis to move to the Galil and to develop those areas. Just between us here, okay, as the Orthodox community in America, we concentrated many, many years on the West Bank, which is very important. Which, JNF, there's all these theories. JNF has done fire trucks and reservoirs and parks all over Israel. There's, we're building a museum in Kfar Etzion now for $2 million. So it's not about that. It's about making sure we don't forget about other areas. And we forgot, the Orthodox community, about the Negev. We forgot about the Galil. And when you fly, from Tel Aviv to the Negev, to Eilat, at night, once you go past Beersheba, it's black. It's pitch black. There's no lights. And if we're not there, we know who will be there. And that's why we wrote a plan for the Israeli government called Blueprint Negev 15 years ago and put very clear milestones along the way to measure success. Beersheba was a declining population. A success story for a mother in Beersheba is that her son goes to the army, goes to college, and moves to Tel Aviv. Right. There's no future in Beersheba, Yerucham, Dimona, Arad, etc. And that's something we're trying to change. And you know what? This playground, Bezrat Hashem, there won't be one more rocket. If there's not one more rocket, was this a waste of $5 million? And the answer is no. We interviewed a kid here from Sderot named Stav, who said he goes to regional school. He said, I was always embarrassed to tell my friends I live in Sderot. Today, my friends want to know when they can come play at my playground. Because this place, for those of you who haven't been here, on your next trip to Israel, please come visit the Sderot Indoor Playground, and the JNF Indoor Playground in Sderot. By the way, we have a weekly tour that leaves Yerushalayim every Wednesday from Heichal Shlomo, and comes here. This is one of the stops along the way. We go to the Island Institute, the Underground Bullet Factory. We go see Beersheva, and we come to this playground. And great way to spend the day in Israel. Come spend it on the JNF weekly tour. It's on our website. You can find out more at jewishnationalfund.org. And you'll come and you'll see kids playing here and having a good time and really enjoying it. And
you talk about milestones and success in the Negev. How do we judge that? How do we achieve those milestones? What can you tell our audience in terms of the progress that's been made? Beersheva, it's obvious, and as you just indicated, plenty of people visit there and see it. What would we see in other areas in the Negev?
So if you go visit Chalutza is an area that wasn't touched. You're going to hear later from Yedidya Harush from Chalutza. He'll tell you he used to live in Gush Katif, and I don't want to really steal everything he's going to say, but I'm sure he's going to talk about the fact that when they got out of Gush Katif, they went to the government and said, what's the next national mission? And the government pointed at the triangle of borders, Egypt and Gaza.
Right.
And that's where they relocated, and they turned the page. And today we have over 250 families, I believe, living there. It's in the census that was done at the end of 2014 by the Israeli Census Bureau. Chalutza is the highest growing area population-wise in the entire state of Israel. And we believe that in 10 years we're going to have 30,000 people there. And there's an area that had nobody there before. And you go there, and it's real tzionut, it's real chalutziut. By the way, many of the etrogim that you guys bought in New York and New Jersey this year came from Chalutza. The first thing they did when they got out of Gush Katif is they planted etrogim for orla purposes, to wait the 4 years until they could actually sell the etrogim all over. And
I think we were in one of those orchards back in August, if I'm not mistaken.
So they're the biggest exporters of carrots and potatoes, organic, to Europe, and they turned the page. And there's a lot of yeshivot there, and the pre-army Rafi Peretz's yeshiva, Atzmona, is there. Rav Eli Adler, who's from the yeshiva, is very involved in what we do at JNF. He's kind of the leaders there who helped us make a difference and get involved. And we spent millions of dollars there bringing people to live there and to call it their home.
And how do we judge success up north in the Go North Building Initiative?
So the Go North Building Initiative is actually in its early stages. Last week we had 85 major donors of JNF of America visiting Israel. We called it our task force mission. And we spread ourselves out around Israel. Groups of 10, 12, 15 people all over Israel. One of the groups was the IRC, which I'll mention in a couple seconds. But the Go North Task Force mission went up north, and we were discussing projects that are going to help bring jobs, going to help bring population to come live in Akko, in Ma'alot, in Carmiel, in the Beit Shan.
No, we're talking about really up north.
Emek HaMa'ayanot. How do we get Israelis to call that their home? How do we get them to consider living there? Because it's not just about living in Yerushalayim, Yehuda Shomron, Tel Aviv, Haifa. There's another very large chunk of Israel that we have to go and settle. It's not just good to go to a Tzimmer for the night. It's good to call it your home and put your roots in. And that's really what we're about, putting our roots in. Everybody thinks of JNF back to the early days when we really put just our roots in with the trees. And it's a misconception that that's all we do. And
when people fund these projects, are you then able to give incentives or help people along, whether it be with education or job placement? Are you able to do that with that?
Well, last week we dedicated in Beersheva the new Ronald Lauder Employment Center in Beersheva.
There you go.
The idea of the Employment Center is to keep the great minds that go to Ben Gurion University in Beersheva, to keep them in the Negev. And it's a partnership between Jewish National Fund.
Because normally they'd go to other major areas of Israel.
Of course.
Right.
Of course. Everybody wants to live in Tel Aviv, right? That's where
work there.
And work there. But we're working on making them want to stay here, not forcing them to stay here. And we actually see the opposite. We see people who live in Tel Aviv commuting to work in Beersheva. And we're hoping we're going to be able to help them find a home in Beersheva. And when they find a home, we have to help them have the right education, the right job, the right school for their kids, a park, etc., etc., etc. And that's really the full package of what we're doing. It's Nefesh B'Nefesh, which we'll hear later, which is another one of our partners, helps you make Aliyah. But once you made Aliyah, we want to help you make Aliyah to the Negev or Aliyah to the Galil. So we do that in partnership with Nefesh, but we also have other organizations in Israel that help you make that step and make sure it's a successful step.
How long have you been living in Israel?
So actually I was born here. And after I served in the Army for 4.5 years, I moved to Springfield, New Jersey. And we moved back to Israel 5.5 years ago. I don't miss anything about the Gullus except JM in the AM, because you can't listen to JM in the AM in your car at 12 o'clock in the afternoon in Israel and hear you sing Modeyani Lefanecha, right? It just doesn't work at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. But it's a treat to be here with you today, and it's great to listen to JM online. But being back in Israel in JNF really gives me an opportunity. Every day I wake up, I know by the time I go to sleep, Israel's going to look a little bit better. And that's really what we do.
And it happens day by day.
Every single day.
It can't happen in one fell swoop. It's got to be a process and a very thought-out process.
So we're running a marathon, not it's not a sprint.
Right.
Sometimes processes can take years until they come true. But that's really what we do. We try to take the vision and turn it into actuality. And again, I said it's measured. And that's why I said the IRC mission. That was here last week. The IRC is our Israel Review Committee. They come to Israel. These are accountants and lawyers who are JNF donors who come to Israel, and they go into every single one of our partner organizations and they rip them apart. They open their books and they want to see where the money went. The money that came from you guys in America and we're spending here in Israel, we want to make sure we're accountable for. And we have a fiduciary responsibility to do that. And that's why we get the highest ratings from Charity Navigator and GuideStar and Better Business Bureau. And it's something we're very proud of. It makes it very easy to, ask somebody to make a donation to Jewish National Fund of America, knowing that his money's protected and we're doing the right thing we should be doing with his money.
As you know, a week from now, there'll be a nice influx of tourists coming for Pesach to Israel. Will those tours that you just mentioned be happening on Chol
Yeah,
Hamoed
of course,
as well?
of course. And I've got many emails from people all over. Shout out to the Israelis in West Orange who send me an email that they're coming on the JNF tour. But really, if you haven't signed up and you're in Israel looking for something to do, go onto the JNF website, look up our tours over Pesach. We're going to have several of them. And besides the tours, go visit Ammunition Hill. We're going to have many activities. It's not just good to go to the Kotel and walk through the Mamilla Mall. Remember that 45 years ago, you couldn't go to the Kotel. And it's about the battle at Ammunition Hill that was the reunification of Yerushalayim. You'll hear later from Yoel Rasby a little bit more about what we're doing at Ammunition Hill and how you could come and bring your kids. So we're going to have challenging activities over Pesach for people to come, rock climbing and a zip line, and I'm sure anybody who goes there will have a good time. So.
Ariel, thank you for welcoming us here today and for being here today. It's
thank
much
you
appreciated.
very, very much, Nachum. I appreciate it.
Ariel Kotler, everybody. He is JNF Development Officer and spending time with us in our first hour this morning at JM in the AM. We're in Israel. We're in Sderot. We're in the JNF Indoor Playground in Sderot. Inviting everybody to come and see this amazing facility. As you just heard, you can do so all through the year. And if you're coming for Pesach, you have an amazing opportunity to come and spend some time here with the JNF Tour. You can go to their website for more information. More coming up. Keep it right here at JM in the AM.